Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL to get 5% off of your sale. And then also by Coalesce Apparel, where you can get really cool t-shirts and stuff, and use the code CASUALMAGIC to get 10% off your sale. And by Archidect, a deck hosting website that doesn't really sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., Coalesce Apparel, and Archidect. They're all really rad. You can get my t-shirt and stickers from Coalesce. Please do. It's awesome. And you can use my code CASUAL at Cool Stuff, Casual Magic at Coalesce, and Archidect is a deck building website. There's no code there for you. But today, I have a very special guest. Unlike any of the other 113 episodes I've had, which haven't been special guests, today I have another member of the Goldfish family of creators. Tomer has joined me today all the way from the far frozen north. There's a lot of Canadian Magic players, it seems like, and like all of them show up on my show. It's kind of rad. Hi.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm the second Goldfish. Did you grab? I'm
I
assuming
had Krim.
Krim. Sick.
I had Seth, I had Krim, and then you, and then I guess I need to meet Richard.
Oh yeah. So then you get the Goldfish.
Then I have a Goldfish bowl.
Yeah. That's actually good.
Man, that's what you guys should be calling your roundtables, the Goldfish bowl.
Yeah, we call it the crew, but the bowl is actually way better.
Isn't it though? It's thematic. It's important.
So you told me about Zencaster, now you told me the Goldfish Bowl. I'm just gonna have like a notepad open for this entire podcast. I'm just like, all right, nailed it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that I was able to get you on because I know you and I have been trying for a long time to try to get together to do stuff, and it's hard because of time zones. But I have been actually a fan of yours for years and years and years and years and years because you do really, really awesome budget commander content. And isn't that even your Twitter handle, like Budget Commander or something like that?
Yeah. I stayed unoriginal for that one. I just went at Budget Commander.
You know what, man? If you're early enough to get the brand, get it and take it, right? Like,
yeah.
you know how hard it is to try to find things that are called casual magic?
Oof. that would probably be tough, even like 2010, if you tried to get that handle.
Well, yeah, because it turns out there's magicians.
Yeah,
who do like tricks and things.
Yeah, so like casual magic tricks and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like card tricks. I'm like, oh darn, I do card tricks, but they're more like giant growths and less like, Namath Queen or whatever.
Yeah.
So, when did you get into Magic?
Oof. So I got into Magic long ago. I don't even remember the year, but I remember I was little. I think I was like 5, and I think Ice Age was out.
Oh my god!
I think that's when I started playing because my brother was into Magic. He played very casually, like
Older brother.
Magic. Yeah, older brother,
Has
7 years older than me.
Oh geez.
Yeah. We had quite a gap. Like when you're kids, like a 7-year gap is quite large, but
now it's not too much.
Once you're approaching 30, like it's like whatever. Yeah. So yeah, he was a kitchen table player, and he needed another person to play with. So he got me in. He had a shoebox of Magic the Gathering cards, and he basically just gave it to me. And he built me a green deck with Ironwood Treefolk. I remember that card to this day. It was like a 4/5 for 3/5. It was a 3/5. Oh yeah, goodness, if it was any stronger than that. So I was playing that, and he was playing literally like goblins and like Shivan dragons and stuff like that. So I was his punching bag, and that kind of was like,
well, you're also 5. Like,
yeah,
my son is 8, and I've been trying to teach him Magic and other games and stuff. And it turns out that it is very hard for children that age to grasp things. Like, this game is complicated. There's a lot of steps involved. And that's why
Yeah.
when you look at like some of these kids who play Magic who are like, 7 or whatever, I'm like, damn, that's insane. Now that I know what an actual 7-year-old tries to do, this is nuts. But yeah,
Honestly, I was getting all the rules wrong until like, man, you know what actually helped a lot? Magic Online, because it was the first time I knew
yes.
when like how phases work because I needed a
Mhm.
visual indicator of all that stuff. Like I did not know that it was like untap, upkeep, like draw. I thought it was just you untap and then it's like your
It
main
just, like,
phase
kinda
or
happens
whatever.
all together.
Yeah, it all happens all at the same time or something like that. Like those
That's one of the
concepts.
things, like, MTGO is deeply, deeply, like, unforgiving and has a miserable learning curve, but the one thing it does better than anything else in the world is teach you every possible, like, proper way to play Magic, right? Like,
Yeah.
you learn about things like priority and holding priority and passing phases and, "Whoops, I just lost all my mana, so I guess I shouldn't do that."
And like
And, like,
the stack, like
yeah,
this elusive
cracking
ethereal
something
stack.
in
Yeah.
response to another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
wild.
that's when I started. To a long way around that. I started playing in Ice Age very casually with my brother. When my brother lost interest, I lost interest.
Mm.
Then fast forward much later, I came back with a couple friends for Alara. When Alara came out, we all got precons. That was super fun. And then fast forward later, university, starting university, and got into a little place called Commander. Yeah. So I started a little bit earlier than that. Got into Popper. That was my big thing. I started writing for Pure MTGO, which
Mm.
I'm alumni with Alex. I know you've had chats with Alex. He's like now on like the Popper committee.
Yeah.
So Alex Ullman.
Yes.
Yeah. So we both were on Pure MTGO at the same time writing my Popper. And then I got my friends into Commander when the first Commander precons came out. And I had the Political Puppets pre-constructed that with Zedger, which I still own. Very different looking now, but yeah. And then from then on, it was just all Commander.
Wow. Man, like, Pure MTGO is a site I haven't thought about in a long time. Like, that used to be really, really like, I used to watch streams there when that was very early on. Um,
Yeah.
so
It looks much. It's still kicking around. There's still great people
oh,
working
are
there,
there
but
is it still active? I haven't even
it's
thought
still
about it
kicking
in, like,
around.
1,000 years.
I don't check on it that often, but yeah, that's I still have fond memories of that because like
How
every
did
time.
you
Hmm?
how did you get in with the Goldfish Crew then?
Well, so I started writing popper articles on Pure MTGO, and then I switched to Commander when my group went to Commander,
Mm.
and there was an up and coming website, MTG Goldfish. I don't remember what year it was. I think it was like 2014, 2015. That's that around that time when MTG Goldfish was showing up a lot. It was focusing mostly on price, like card prices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And articles started popping up. I think Seth was already writing articles for it, but they were looking for more people
Yeah.
to like fill out the front page. So I just emailed Richard out of the blue. I was like, "Hey, I write Commander articles. I would love to write for your website." And so I just did, and I continued doing so, just like one after the other.
That's I mean, because you're part of that core idea there. It seems like you guys are just more prolific than any other group in writing, and it's kind of wild to me. Like, because I was thinking about like how much content you, Krim, and Seth put out, and it's insane. It's like just you're like machines, and then you also do streaming and then videos, and like you know, it's it feels like more comes out of the Goldfish group regularly than any other content group, content provider. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but one thing that I find really just fascinating and really enjoyable is because you managed to keep your focus on budget commander for so long. And like, I like to watch your like, oh, I try to watch the playing commander on MTGO, which is really hard because that that client hates commander, right?
Yeah.
Like commander exists like out of spite on Magic Online. But I'm always impressed by the fact that you guys are like, "Yeah, I'm gonna make an entire deck out of $1 or like out of
Yeah.
10 tickets or whatever." And it's like you can get some real gnarly cards for 10 tickets or less. or like completely build an entire deck in under 10 tickets because of the economy on MitGo being so different from real life.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of wild. You can actually build full commander decks, like really good commander decks for free. Well, not free with asterisks, as in
right.
it costs $5 US to get a full account, and you need a full account so you can trade cards.
Mm,
But then there's these bots that allow you to borrow, like set up a free loan account, and they'll give you a balance on those accounts for free for like five, basically the equivalent of $5 US. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when like cards like a Tundra is like less than $1, and then
mm,
like most cards that you can think of are like cents, like literally cents. There's even a format called Penny Dreadful where each
right.
card is it's 0.01 tickets, which is literally a cent. So you build decks that are literally $1. You do 100 card singleton, it's literally $1. That's those are the only ones that are legal in the format, right? Like you can't go
I
higher
mean,
than that.
I did it once and I was so stunned to find out that Gaia's Cradle was like only a couple of bucks on MitGo. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell? I don't even understand.
Yeah, it's wild. The hardest thing is just like getting people on it. It's a clunky, it's an ancient client, and it's so hard. It's a hard sell. It's a clunky. It's not intuitive in the
And it
least.
has the no tutorial,
No
no like
tutorial.
explanation of how to do anything at all.
No.
It is just like, look, man, you're using this because you have to, and we
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah. But like if you can get over all that stuff, then like it's so rewarding because you can say like, hey, I want to make this paper commander deck. I've always wanted to play this paper commander deck, but you know what? I don't have the cards, and I don't want to commit $200 before I give it a shot. So you can
Mm,
go on Magic Online, and with these free bot programs, once you put in $5 to have your full account, you can literally just borrow all those cards and play out that deck, and then be thinking like, hey, you know what? Either I don't like this deck, I don't see myself playing it that often, or I can try out all these cards that are expensive, and I can give it a shot and give it some play testing online, and then see if I want to buy the cards and paper and stuff like that. So you can use it multiple ways, or you can just have fun playing on Magic Online too. But like there's so much value in it. If I wish Wizards of the
yeah,
Coast like took us some time to like really sit down and invest on that, because
I know,
it's so
right?
good.
Like,
There's so much potential.
especially, it's completely wild to me because what you just said is actually exactly true. Like, I'm a big fan of elves in every format, and so I was like, okay, what does Elf Ball look like on Commander? And I've never built it because of just reasons I've never gotten around to it. And I did it on MitGo, which was like hella cheap. It turns out the entirety of an elf set can be bought for like less than $10. And I tried it out and I was like, oh, this is really fun, but it's also super linear. It does exactly the same thing. And I could tell after, like, once you play Commander a bit, you can tell after like one or two playthroughs immediately that this deck, not even one or two, just one, you can tell that this deck is either going to have legs or not. And
Hmm.
like, I played Elf and I was like, this is going to play out exactly the same way every single time. I'm glad I only threw $10 at it and I can sell the cards back and get that money back and not have invested in actually trying to paper this out.
Yeah, but you also got that chance to give it a shot too.
Oh
Like,
yeah, and I'm not saying it wasn't fun. It was a
yeah,
blast.
yeah.
But it's also like, yeah, look, this, it does what it says on the tin. It's that's not the experience I wanted out of Commander, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And,
So
and that's why Magic Online is so useful, because it can allow you to do all that play testing and stuff before you invest.
yeah, and it's just it's I wish it was um less 1993.
Hmm.
I
Me
wish
too.
it was more approachable. I wish it was not just here to like smash our face. I mean, it just makes you work so hard. And I'm like, I just want to play Magic, man. Just let me do the thing. And but the one upside of the Mitgo has like 90% of Magic cards on it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they've been doing a bad job of getting all the new Commander cards on there, but like you can approximate pretty much everything but the newest stuff really, really well.
Yeah,
Uh,
the library they have online is kind of insane, and I have to give them some credit. Like the last 2 years, they've been pretty bad about getting the commander cards online from the pre-constructed decks. Like street from I think from Strixhaven onward, we just haven't had the commander pre-constructed cards online, they did actually try to get all the latest ones from the latest set that's like from Kamigawa, all the cards from Kamigawa, including the Neon Dynasty commander cards. They're working out some kinks right now. Like some of the cards they actually had to disable because they were bugged. Um, but at least, I mean, they made that effort. They said every single card is going to show up online, which I was like
I hope so.
super
I mean,
happy about.
I know that now that David, God, I can't remember his last name, but the guy who runs MTGO is a hardcore commander player. So I think he's incentivized to want David McDarby.
Yes,
He's
he was on
incentivized
Commander
to want,
Versus.
yeah,
I'm a
exactly.
fan.
Like that's his origin story. So I think he's incentivized to want to try to get as many commander cards on there as possible.
Hmm.
Um, so a question that a lot of people are always really curious about, especially for you guys, you make commander decks the way that other people just like, like the way the trees make leaves. Like you guys have it feels like every day there's like 40 new decks or you've come up with a new thing. What is your process for building a new deck? How do you do it so quickly? I know it takes me forever to put together a deck.
Well, our
Granted,
main
I do
gimmick
this for a
is
living too. So
yeah. I mean, our main gimmick for Commander Clash is that every single week we come up with like a gimmick deck, or like not always a gimmick deck. Like we've been showcasing new Kamigawa commanders and we're building decks around those. But then sometimes we're doing like next week we're doing a recording on esports.
mm.
So each person is building a deck themed around an esport. So I'm building StarCraft. I think Richard is building League of Legends. Seth doesn't know any esports, so I think he's
Yeah, I was like,
building
he just
chess.
plays Magic, man,
Yeah,
and
he
like
plays. I
Civ.
think it's gonna be a chess or checkers or something like that. It's gonna be great. So our thing for it, I don't know how the rest of the crew does it, but like I usually have a checklist where I look at my deck list and I'm like, all right, I need to make sure I have 10 ramp. I
Mm.
need to make sure I have two board wipes. I need to make sure I have 10 card draw. Blah blah blah, and I kind of like once I do that, it kind of helps me very quickly fill out the list. Like if I'm in a green deck with counters and I know I want, Inspiring Call says draw a card for each creature that has a counter on it.
Mm.
Armorcraft Judge says draw a card for each
I
thing. So
love
I
that
already
card.
like, so I'm like, I have these slots already on my list. And I just need to fill them out with the cards that I want. And that's like a super easy way for me to build from 0 to 100 and not go to like 150 and cut my way down to 100.
Hmm.
Like whenever I go way above 100 and have to cut my way down, it takes so much longer
It
for
is
me to do that.
so much harder to cut a card in Commander than it is
No,
to add a card in Commander.
absolutely. So like having a focus, like what you want your deck list to look like in the end, having that goal in mind definitely is really like shortens the process. And I used to do a stream where I did budget live brews. So in 2 hours we would build a budget deck together,
Mm.
or whatever the budget the chat would choose, and then we build the deck together. And I would say, all right, we're on the card draw section. I need 10 slots for card draw. Give me some suggestions for card draw, and we'll work away on that stuff. And we would do that weekly for 2 hours, and that's how we would do it. Obviously, when I don't have a chat, I can do it even faster. But I guess the long way of saying it is we've been doing Commander Clash for 6 years now. So
Hmm.
we just know,
Right,
but like that
exactly.
checklist helps.
At some point, you just know how to build a Commander deck really well. Like,
Yeah.
once you've done this enough times, you can kind of build the template in your head, fill it up, and just go forward. Do you ever worry that there's too many just staples?
Um. Kind of.
Because I mean,
Kind
I know
of.
that for like folks like us, having these kind of shortcuts and stuff is good because we have to churn out a ton of content. You have to have a ton of decks, but it feels like if you're the average player, having these prefix spots takes away a lot of the space for creativity and expression.
I think so at a certain level. Like if you're playing at a lower power table, or if you're playing like Commander Clash, we always go for janky themes usually. For
Hmm.
those weeks, we can play whatever the heck we want because nobody's really running a bunch of stuff. But like eventually it does feel like at certain tables, if I'm just going blind to a table and I just assume it's going to be like mid to high power or whatever, then I kind of feel a little bit silly if like I'm not running, the Smothering Ties or the Jessica's Wills and stuff like that, because
Mm,
like the equivalents, the thematic or whatever equivalent just really won't hold up. So yeah, I do kind of just like I'll throw them in, and it is a little bit of a feels bad where you're like you don't really have 99 cards that you're playing around with. You have mostly like, I don't
30.
know. Yeah, 30, because
Well, because
even
like you've got
counting
like
the lands.
lands, you got
Yeah,
like so
yeah,
yeah, lands take up like what 1/3 of your deck, and then you've got your like your Kodama's Reaches and Friends that are like the other 30 of your deck. So that leaves you with about like 30 cards that you have to play with, really.
yeah.
And uh, I mean, I feel like that's like a problem that nobody's gonna be able to solve. That's just
Hmm.
the problem of an eternal format. Is eventually you're just going to end up with stuff that you have to use because it's the way the game works.
Yeah,
Um,
it's more like a power level thing, I think, too. Like if you're
mm,
not at the highest power where you don't need those cards, then like you can get away with like like much jankier versions, but they fit a little bit better for what your theme is, your flavor, or whatever.
I mean, God knows that we would never do such a thing on Casual Magic. We totally do not ever advocate for people to play the cards that they want instead of the cards that will get them to the toppest tier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, didn't you know I'm a super spike now? I
Super
totally
sick.
played CDH once. Uh,
Well, I've heard that you focus on some spiky formats, but not in Commander. Like you like 1v1. I believe, what was it, Legacy that you said you liked?
I like Modern and Legacy quite a bit,
Mm.
but like the thing is that's just because I like play Elves decks and Elf combo is very very good in Modern and Legacy. But like, no, I mean, because Commander is for me, it's like a board game night. It's more like I want to hang out with my friends. I want to throw down. I want silly things to happen.
Hmm.
And sometimes that means with super powerful cards, like Jessica's Will is awesome. Like Dockside is awesome. I love these cards. But sometimes it also means that I'm using that Dockside mana to power out a Mahamoti Jin. Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's like my joke is, yeah, I go turn one, land, soul ring, mana vault, juggernaut. And then you're like, well,
Yeah, yeah. There's always two sides on that coin. It's like how fast can you get your stuff at? How fast? I like thinking of it as popping off. I don't know where that term started, but it's just like
everybody
become
calls it
a
popping
thing.
off, right?
Popping off. It's like what when your deck pops off, what does it do? And for a lot of people, popping off means I just win the game. But for other people, it's like when I pop off, I have like a couple big golems on the battlefield
Right?
that do silly things from, I don't know, antiquities block, like
Yeah,
so,
like
what your deck pops off with is very relevant. More and more often I find lately, it's like popping off that means I win the game. So when you rush towards I win the game, it's a little bit of a downer if you're trying to, play like, your janky stuff, and that means you have less chance for that. But like if everybody's popping off with like, oh, I'm putting a bunch of like sphinxes, but like the old sphinxes, not the good sphinxes, like and it's like, all right, yeah, fast mana,
yeah,
that's great. We get to that fun point faster.
yeah, like for me, like my soldiers deck pops off when it's making 1/1 tokens, right? Like
Hmm.
that's not exactly game breaking here, but a
Hmm.
ton of tokens on the table, suddenly, woo, my deck did the thing.
Yeah.
Um, Not that I don't have decks that pop off by winning. Like obviously when my Brea deck pops off, it means an infinite combo just went off. Or like Titania is going to come at you with 300 5/3s or whatever. Um, but that's fine. That's good. I think as long as you're on the same page with everybody, then it doesn't matter how you plan on doing it. And it's cool because you guys on Commander Clash have had basically effectively your own in-group meta for like 6 years of doing content. You play with the same people. You've got ideas for their play styles. You're like the perfect rule zero example of like how to do this. Like you make an agreement. This is what we're gonna do, and it works out. I think you've done a really good job of modeling mid-tier commander. Like instead of just giving us like because one of the problems we have as content creators is that we always want to be cutting edge and we always want to be pushing the limits and upgrade, and that leads to a lot of the community just being dragged up to the top. So I like seeing people
Hmm.
model that kind of like middle ground that seems to get left behind.
Yeah. I have been noticing that a lot, where a lot of the content creation skews higher power, just because like if you're highly invested in Magic, odds are you're probably going to have these higher power cards, right? Like you
Sure.
just have them laying around. Like I think I have multiple jeweled lotuses and like some old cards that are just like randomly like
I
super
mean, look, if
strong.
you play for a long enough time, you just
Yeah.
collect things.
You just get them, yeah. Like you do it. So it's like, why wouldn't you run them? But like eh, when we run, always our main gimmick is like these weird themes like esports, or we do like sliver mayhem where you can't run any tutors and everybody's running old slivers. So everybody's having like these 300 300s with like bajillion keywords and stuff like that, and like movie night or Halloween night or stuff like that. That gives us an opportunity to showcase a lot of cards that objectively you would never see at like a
No,
regular
right?
table, but they're allowed to flourish because everybody is bringing those type of cards. There was one content creator that I also really like that stands out, and I wish they make more of it. Have you ever seen Quest for the Jank Lord?
I have.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're well, they're wonderful. Like they have this cool like aesthetic where it's like a bunch of people who have been summoned to hell, or
Yeah.
they've been summoned to like some demon world, and they're playing that, and they have that cool gimmick going on. But they also their deck building restriction, I believe they have like a very low budget limit on the individual cards that they have. I forget which one it was. I think it's like 68 cents or something like that.
Random.
And they're randomly assigned their commander. So again, these heavy restrictions force them to play more mid power decks, but it also forces them to run a bunch of cards that or in commanders that you generally don't get to see that often, which is something that I really hope. I don't know. I hope they make more often because I really like their show.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it when people put restrictions on themselves in Commander, because that shows me that you're trying. That shows me that there's an interesting, like, I love it when decks are like themed in really bizarre. Like there was a deck I saw where all the titles were alliterative. Like they had to have two words that had the same sound to start them, and I was
Yep.
like, that is so clever. Or like some kind of weird thematic like it's like ladies with hats, right? Like it's a cliche, but it's also just like you're putting thought and effort to do something that is not on rails, that is not just the expected, 60 cards that you would put with this commander. I don't know. I think it's fun. It's more fun, and it keeps the thing interesting.
Hmm.
Not that there's nothing wrong with powerful, but sometimes there's folks that just like to play weirder things. And
I
one of
remember
the
writing
reasons
it.
that I was such a big fan of you is because I know that you, like me, share a love for weird specific cards that nobody else wants to. And for you, it's definitely Caldra, the all-purpose multi, like, you have to slam three cards together, get something to happen, and it still dies to a path to exile.
Unfortunately, yes.
Like
And
I love that card. I love the mechanics of putting a thing together to make an actual Voltron, like the new Mecha Titan core, which must have been like
mhm,
exactly up your alley in terms of like Cauldron esque, or even things like what the hell was that one from the core set that was like the witch, the cauldron, and the rat, or whatever, the three things that went together.
there was
Oh, the newt, festering newt,
yes, Bubbling
which is,
Cauldron and something witch.
yeah, bog brew, whatever.
I think it was Bobber Witch, yeah. I don't remember what they do, but
Well, yeah, Bog Brew Witch. Yeah, because Festering
well,
Newt, when it dies, target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn, but it gets -4 if you control a Bog Brew Witch. And the Bog Brew Witch is like you can tutor out for a Newt and a Cauldron and put them onto the table. And the
mhm,
Cauldron lets you sack a creature. But if you sack a Newt, each opponent loses 4 life and you gain that life. So it's like, it's this whole little circle that just, I love. I love it
yeah.
when they do card systems like that.
I'm a big fan of that, of like the Vecnas. There was Hand of Vecna and
Eye of
Eye of
Vecna.
Vecna, and was there another one? I think there was
The
another
Book
one.
of Vile Darkness.
Yes, and once you have all those, you can summon the Vecna
Yeah.
token, which I also like that they're not like super powerful or anything. I forget what that one does, but I think it's just like an indestructible token. And then as soon as
It's
somebody
an
cyclonic
8/8.
riffs, you
Yeah,
get
it's basically just an 8/8 with the triggered abilities of those cards that were
yeah.
exiled.
it's cute.
It's
I love
fun.
those stuff. I love it.
I love it. I
Is
think
it is it gonna win games? Probably. Sometimes, maybe, but
if you're lucky, maybe,
you
but
got to work for it.
yeah, for me, it just feels like you're getting to build something, and it feels like magic. It feels like, like, "Ooh, I'm summoning this evil lich to come down and do the thing," and I love that. I think Magic needs more thematic little mini stories like that, just
Mhm.
like tiny little like the thing about the Calder cards that was so cool is that they were like before they were like you would see it in Time Spiral, and then it would tell you, "Oh, there's a card called Helm of Caldra," and you're like, "What the hell's Helm of Caldra? Where's that coming from?" The same way that like when you saw what was that land in Zendikar that said that the Eye of Ugin?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then it was like, "Ooh, you can play
Wait, who's
Eldrazi cheaper,"
Ugin?
and it's like, "What the
Oh.
hell's an Eldrazi?"
Yeah, yeah, that was sick. There was I remember one of my favorite on that one was they were foreshadowing, I believe it was a new bolus card. I think it was like Dark Intimations.
Right.
And it was like you can get like a bolus from your you can cast it, and it's kind of like it has a cruel ultimatum-ish vibe to it. But you could also like cast like if you cast a bolus planeswalker spell, Dark Intimations, you could exile it and get some
You
extra
get to get
counters
an
on it.
extra loyalty counter.
And that was printed in Aether Revolt, which did not have a bolus, but like it was
No,
such a bolus card. So we're like, oh,
that's
we're
weird.
getting a bolus. I'm super stoked, but like it's not there yet. It's like that hint,
Yeah, and we didn't
which
get the
I
bolus
absolutely love.
until the next set in Amonkhet when obviously everything bad happened.
Yeah,
But God, I love it. I love it when Magic tries to do things like that. I think it's so much fun to see weird or cute little interactions like that.
it's kind of like a mini game. That's why I
Yeah,
love it so much. It's like you're playing a game of Magic. You want to win the game, but also you have this side quest or mini game in that game where you're like, I'm trying to do this X thing. This
right.
X thing has a payoff. It's worth doing. It's not so good that your deck has to be warped around doing it. But when you get to do it, it's really fun. You get to pull it off. You don't get to pull it off always because if it's too easy to do, then meh. But like the times you get to do it, it's very memorable. You know.
Yeah, it reminds me of the modules or whatever from Kaladesh. The three the animation module, decoction module, fabrication module combo
Hmm.
where it was like you put a counter on something. When a thing gets a counter, you get to get energy tokens. When you get energy tokens, something blah blah blah, and builds this little like loop that just goes around the table. I
Yeah.
love Magic. That's why I built a Brea deck in the first place. Everybody's like, Brea is broken. Why would you do that? And I'm like, because I can randomly get into weird 3 or 4 or 5 card infinite combos, and it's awesome. I
Yeah,
love
because
infinite combos.
yeah, I always love artifact decks in general for that, especially ones that have multiple colors because it gives you
Yeah,
more options. It feels like you're assembling a construct. You're assembling some sort of like you have all these bits and pieces, and all of them. It's almost like you're playing Lego or something. You know, you have all
exactly,
these
exactly.
you have these pieces, and they go together. But how do they go together? You have to assemble it. You have to figure it out, and every single game, you're figuring out a different combo. You're figuring out a different way of putting these pieces together. And that's kind of the appeal of artifact decks to me in general, because something, taps to do something powerful. And then you have an item that untaps artifacts, and then you have stuff that returns artifacts from the graveyard. And it's like you're just like sacrificing these little bits and pieces and putting them all
Yes,
together. And that's like the artifact flavor, it always resonates for me because it always
yes.
feels like what that archetype is trying to do. It's like all these cogs and wheels, which are what
Exactly,
artifacts are,
exactly,
and they go
exactly.
together, and you're making something. You're making something cool, a new invention.
I love it. I am 100% on the same page as you.
Hmm.
Now, where I'm not on the same page as you, I would like to talk to you about a topic that if we put on Twitter, you and I will both get just flooded with nonsense, which is fast mana.
Yes.
Because I know that you guys, when you're doing your streams and recordings, have a house ban on no fast mana spells, right? Like something like you can't use soul rings or anything that uh gets you more mana than it costs or something around those lines?
Yeah, well, I've been playing around with it, and to be clear, it's not on Commander Clash either. We've had house bans in the past, but this season at least, we went back to everything's on the table. But
Hmm.
for my streams, and I've been doing a weekly series called Commander Quickies, which is a bridge gameplay. Um, we're kind of aiming for mid-power games, and for the sake of that, we've banned, I think it's like 5 cards. Let me pull it up. It is Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, Dockside Extortionist, Smothering Tithe, Gaia's Cradle, Rhystic Study, and Soul Ring.
Mm.
So I know we have some disagreements on it's one of those cards, Shivam.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, there's a lot of commander players who think that that list should just be the like fundamental core of the ban list for commander, right? Like,
Hmm.
there are people who are like, look, man, fast mana makes the game way too fast, and it makes it broken, and it makes and all these arguments are correct, right? Like, I'm not going to pretend that Soul Ring doesn't make the game stronger. I'm not that much of I'm not that blind, right? But I think part of the problem is that the negative impact on more expensive commanders, right? Like, the
Mhm.
whole point of like being able to play things like Mana Crypt or whatever is because it lets you get out your Piru way faster, or your other, like, 7, 6, 7, 8 mana commander. And I realize that WotC is just making my life hard by just printing like two through four
Cheaper.
power commanders, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you're undercutting my argument here. And they're like, well, why are you playing the sucky 8 mana commander? I'm like, because I love Arcada Sabbath. That's why. Um, I don't know. It's just like, I think I think that there's got to be a place for it, because
Mhm.
Commander is the only place for a lot of these cards to work, and it's fun to play. I mean, like, one of the things about Soul Ring that I like to talk about is that it is one of the most powerful cards ever printed. In my opinion, it's actually the strongest Magic card ever printed. And um, there's a lot of the formats where you can play cards that are this power level.
Mhm.
I believe it's actually literally just Vintage, and
Yeah.
Vintage and Cube and Commander.
Yeah.
And two of those three are not publicly accessible to everybody, but Commander is. And giving people the chance to play like one of the strongest cards ever made is cool. I don't know. That's like, that's it's do the fun thing, right? Like, don't use your Soul Ring to win on turn two, and then people won't hate it.
So I mean I agree with that. That's an argument that I've always considered very valid. Like it is where else can you play cards like Sol Ring, right? Like
Right.
yeah, you could always honestly like I'm shilling for Magic Online again, but my favorite thing on Magic Online is the Holiday Cube or Vintage Cube, where
Yes,
you
I
get to
love
play those
Vintage Cube.
cards and you get to do it for pretty cheap. So just if
Vintage Cube
you
is just about
want
the only time that I'll fire up Mitco
to, yeah.
anymore, because being able to, I mean, it's rad. Like, at GP Vegas, or whatever, not GP Vegas, the Magic Fest that just happened, I got to play a real life Vintage Cube, and I got to draft. And like, when you pull up a pack and there's like a Mox, and
Yeah.
this guy's cube had like Alpha Moxen and Alpha Load, and I'm just like, I'm holding an Alpha Mox Pearl in my hand. Holy crap! It feels so cool. It feels, and you're like, how do I shuffle this deck? I don't know.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was gonna ask you, is, like, how do you shuffle it? Did
Well,
you
they were
have
all
any
like
shuffle
triple
effects?
sleeved, so you could. I mean,
Okay,
there
but
were.
you do it carefully.
Yeah, they were like, don't bridge shuffle. But I'm like, I'm not gonna bridge shuffle. Are you kidding me?
There was a GP Vegas that I went to in the before times. I think it was 2018. Yeah, GP Vegas 2018. I went with and I met Seth and Richard for the first time in person, which was really radical. Um, and Seth was invited to play one versus one. I think it was I forget what it was. It's a format where it's like only like the oldest of cards. It was like
93,
95 or
94, I
something.
think.
Yeah, something like that. And I remember Seth does not play paper magic. He does not. He
No.
like he plays either on Magic Online or he plays on Arena, right? Like he is digital. So he was given an opportunity to play with these like Moxen and Black Lotus, and the sheer amount of cards you'd see it like a starting hand like costs more than my car, right? Like that's where we're at. I just to see him like he was like his hand was a little bit trembly at the beginning when he
Right?
was picking it up. I was like, he's never shuffled paper cards, and then you're throwing Black Lotuses at him. It's crazy.
It's so crazy. I mean, it's weird because even someone like me who's been playing forever and super jaded and stuff,
Yeah,
when I draw a Black Lotus, my hand is going to be like, oh, what? Just because it's a
yeah.
black. I mean, some cards have power, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and there's that history behind it. So like so I will say like that's absolutely valid. And that's why I'm not saying like ban Sol Ring or ban these things,
mm,
but what I've found from my experiences is when we're aiming for like mid power, and the way I describe mid power is the really easy way is I'll say like we're aiming for a game to go about like, 10 turns average. We're hoping that nobody wins the game before turn 5.
mm,
Something like that. That's basically that's when somebody says like what power level do you want to do? I say those two things, and that's basically it. When I say like I'm having a mid power stream, looking for people for mid power stream. Um, I find that these specific cards show up in mid power decks quite often,
mm,
and that they often, well, not often, but they drastically, significantly increase the likelihood that somebody just wins super quick. Like they'll have that good start, and if somebody doesn't have an answer to it, they just win the game, and that's kind of like it ends up being like what a non-game, and that's not really a big issue. But if it happens quite often, and like I'm doing a stream or doing a recording where I have a set amount of time and hoping to get one of those longer games that we were aiming for, these cards end up hurting that a lot. And the other thing that I've been noticing is like I understand that these cards can kind of get your expensive commanders out faster. The problem is, I don't think these have an impact or a tangible impact on people actually playing those higher power commanders, just because Wizard of the Coast keeps printing these insane 2 to 4 range. I think 2 to 4 range is where they're aiming at these days. Higher than 4, it's kind of like nonsense. So I think that's like the major issue is like if we started seeing everybody having mana crypts and whatnot, would people be running 7 mana commanders, 6 mana commanders like we did a decade ago? I don't think so. I think it's just like, you know,
I
you
mean,
want to play
yeah, at some
Sithis, you want
point,
to play Prosper, right?
at some point, it is definitely me shaking my fist at the clouds. Not gonna lie, but
I'm shaking my fist too, Shivam. I'm
I
shaking
just
my fist too.
I want people to play fun cards.
I
And like
know.
I mean, that's what Commander is. It's a refuge of places where you can sit there and play all these cards that you love that don't do anything anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I always really appreciated your kind of like philosophy and takes on Commander. I think you've got a very, very good focus. And I mean, I guess the budget idea helps a lot, but it also means that you get to look at cards in a way that a lot of us would maybe miss otherwise. So,
Mm.
yeah, like what do you think about Commander lately? Where do you think it's going? Or how do you think it's been for the past like year or two? Since a
Uh,
year of Commander like 2 years ago, it feels like everything has been upended.
yeah. It feels like the push towards Commander has went up dramatically. The power level, or like the speed and the power of the format has gone up dramatically very, very fast in the past couple of years. I feel like 2020 was like the hallmark of it. I think that was the year of the Ikoria fierce guardianship, and all that stuff. And then we came with Dockside Extortionist. I don't remember which commander
Dockside
picked
was
on that one.
2018.
2018. Oh wow, it's been a while actually. So there was 2020 was the Ikoria, and then 2021 I believe it was like Commander Legends, or maybe that was end of 2020. I don't even know
Oh no,
anymore.
Dockside was 2019. I'm sorry.
2019. So 2019 Dogside, 2020 was Ikoria. End of 2020 was that Commander Legends, or was that 2021?
It was end of 2020.
End of 2020. So yeah, 2020 was the year of like, oh my god.
Yeah,
That's the
2020
year
was
of
like,
oh my god for me.
what the hell are you doing, Wizards?
Yeah, there was like there was the Jeweled Lotus, there was the Hull Breacher, there was Opposition Agent, there was a bunch of like a very powerful like in Jessica's Will,
You
those
know,
are sound
even
like a
things like
criminal.
Savine's Reclamation
Yeah.
in C19 were absurdly powerful, or
Sure. Yeah.
Kirk, or I don't know, it just like
So yeah. So My gripe, I felt like 2020 was a little bit too much too quickly. Like,
Mm,
obviously, the format's going to get faster, right? Like, we're going to get new cards, and I want to see new cards. Like I came to the format because of a free constructed deck. Like
mm,
before that, like that was made for commander players, and you got me with Zedru. Zedru was what I wanted. I remember I had this old magazine. I think my parents still have it. It's an old magazine. It was like half of it was Magic, half of it was Pokemon. And I remember reading, I think it was like Type 2 or something, where somebody was playing a deck called Tricks, and it was all about
yes.
donating illusions of grandeur. And I remember
Yes.
I was a kid. I was like, oh my god, that's such a cool thing. And I remember I printed it out and I put like little things in my slips and I played it with my brother. It was great. Um, and then when Zedra came out, it was like, oh my god, this is made for me. Like
Uh,
so the pre-cons
I'm
are
pretty
great,
sure
but
that Zedru is built 100% to let you do the donate
to
combo.
do the thing, yeah, with
It's
the illusion of grandeur, and I still
God,
have
that
it.
Tricks deck is so good.
Yeah.
Um,
So I like Wizard of the Coast making stuff, but like I would hope that they don't speed up the format too quickly because, like you said, there's I think a great appeal about the Commander format is that there's so many cards that you don't get a chance to play anywhere else, like you said. But the problem is that if Wizards of the Coast keeps printing cards that are super powerful, a lot of chunk like those 7-drop commanders that you were talking about, like the cards that you're excited about, the opportunity for you to actually come out and play them dwindles because if you go to a random pickup game, like people want to be, they just opened up, their Commander Legends or their Commander whatever, and the average power level of the cards that they're opening these days, and they're excited to be playing, is going to be much higher than the ones that
mhm.
you wanted to play. So like this huge library of cards, basically you kind of keep them aside, and yeah, you could find play groups where you could play low power or something, but the average
Realistically
play
speaking,
group
it's
is
not
not.
happening, right?
Yeah, it's much harder. It's much harder to do because people
Yeah,
have just powered up their things over time, and the amount of powering up it's gone has gone a little bit higher.
and there's nothing wrong with that. Wizards prints
No.
these cards so that they can be used. We should use them. Like Prosper is amazing. Prosper is a super fun, one of the coolest designs they've done. But you know what else came out in that big span with Dockside and Friends? Golos, right? Like,
Yeah.
and Tulane and Corvald. And I think we had a year where they made basically like the most broken pile of commanders they could ever imagine. And then they realized their mistake immediately and pulled back and gave us like, these new ones that we've gotten, like, you know, Borka Bell or AC or
I love my
whatever
Belborka.
the Bell Borka or the freaking Lorehold commanders, Alabu and
Oh,
friends,
I
or
love them so much.
yeah, like I think that they've done such a much better job now of giving us
Yeah.
like more focused, more narrow commanders that are still interesting, but are like not just the best thing you could be doing in that color. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, why would you ever
I
play
love
anything
them.
but Tulane if you're playing
Yeah.
Bent?
That's the difficulty, like they've ramped out so hard, and then the question is like, okay, going forward, what are you going to be doing? And the thing that gives me a lot of hope is I love one of my favorite YouTube channels, is Gavin's Good Morning Magic. I think
Mm,
he's been killing it with his weekly video, and one of my favorite series on there is he sits down with Melissa, I forget her last
Datora.
name, the Torah. Um, he sits down with her, and she was one of the designers for a lot of the Commander precon decks. So her and Gavin go through like from the beginning, the first Commander precons, and each and every single year they sit down and they discuss, design of it. Even if like she wasn't on the design team and he wasn't on the design team, they'll talk about like because she actively designs Commander cards now. She'll talk about like what she likes and dislikes about it. And I remember they got to the 4-color commanders. I think it was C16, and they were talking about like how their current mindset for designing commanders is they don't want a commander that both draws you a card for doing the thing and ramps you for doing the thing. Doing it both at the same time, it's kind of boring. You want a commander that either ramps you or draws you a card, but not both. And they singled out Kineas and Tyro in particular for that one, which kind of hurt my gay heart because I love that one. And I still love it. But yeah, so that made me really excited because they were talking about like this is what I was fearing going forward. Like I looked at like Corvold,
Oh God.
in Chuling, like Chuling, you do the thing, you draw a card, you ramp, you draw a card
Like,
and you
I
ramp,
love
you draw a
Corvold.
card and you ramp.
Corvold's one of my favorite modern commanders, but
Mm,
I fully acknowledge that that card is broken in half, right? Like, the only one I think of the ones from that Brawl deck that wasn't, was the Knight Commander, and that's gonna
yeah,
cost, like, 12 to
I
play,
ruin.
right?
Yeah.
So, I think I don't know, I find it super fascinating that, like, Gavin and Melissa were both, like, hardcore tournament grinder spikes who are now, like, in charge of Commander, but they're respectfully understanding the format. They get that what we want is not faster, more efficient, but more interesting and orthogonal to what things are, right? Like
hmm
I think Commander does not need to be faster. I think Commander needs to be weirder. It needs to be quirkier. It needs to have more like, what the hell does that card do? How do I even use it?
hmm
Like, I want to see things that make you think of cards in ways that you just don't expect otherwise, right? Like,
the best.
do
Yeah.
banana stuff.
The best commanders are the ones that I think aren't super fast or anything, but what they do is they make you be like, hold on, wait a minute. I need to go through my old pile of jank cards because
Exactly.
there's going to be something that randomly, that card that has been sitting idle and collecting cobwebs suddenly has a home for it. Those are the most
Yes,
exploding.
yes,
But like when
yes.
Orvar came out, Orvar is very powerful. Orvar is very powerful, but like there was a bunch of cards that Orvar says whenever you target a permanent you control, you make a copy of it. And then suddenly you're like, wait a minute, I have these like one mana stuff that targets and they don't do anything super exciting, like Winds of Volrath or something. It's like one mana and you buy back or something. Suddenly, like this card that you would never play is like, oh my god, it's so good in Orvar. So
Mhm.
that is my favorite commanders, where you
Yes.
find cards for old cards, and they don't have to be super powerful. Like I it's tough. I understand they need to sell product, and I want them to sell product, but
The one I use is the one I use as this example is Gen, who is from Commander Legends, the Mardu color, the red, white, black enchantment lord,
mhm.
who lets you sack an enchantment to get one from your graveyard. Because suddenly there are all these black and white enchantments that have been out there forever, but we've never had an enchantress deck that goes red, black, white. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many weirdo cool things you can do. And I'm like, look at this. This guy's not broken. This card's not like gonna upend the table, but it suddenly unlocks thousands of cards that have just been ignored for 100 years. Right?
Yeah. Like, where's my energy commander? I want my energy commander,
I've been
Shivam.
asking for an energy commander for so long.
It's a slam
I've
dunk.
I want one really, really badly. Just let me play with Teamer Ascendant. I mean, I want to play with the freaking Teamer Energy deck. That's all I want.
Yeah, we got a morph commander. Where's our energy commander? I think
Yeah,
that's
right?
like easy ones, and that's like the stuff I want. Like
Exactly.
I have another flex reservoir. I have like these random stuff, and like
That's all I want
I'm
to
not going
do.
to play it in any decks other than an energy deck.
Thank you.
So
Um, so do you play paper?
I do play paper. Yes, not that often during the pandemic,
Well,
but I've started having I've had friends over and we played.
what's your
And
deck?
oh, what are my decks? I have like
Right.
too
None
many
of
of
us
them.
has a deck, right? We all have a table. But
Yeah.
what's your favorite commander right now?
So my favorite commander, I think, though, that I keep pulling out is Toshiro Umezawa. Um, that one is
Mm.
a mono black spellslinger commander.
I was like, wow, I haven't seen anybody play Toshiro before, or not in a
That
long time.
it is a super fun deck, and I only say that because my previous go to is Tribal, which is my all
Your
time
tribal
favorite, but
tri
I've been
Oh
playing it
god, I
so
wanted to
much.
talk to you about tribal. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I love that deck so much.
By all means.
We'll have to come back. Um, but yeah, like, tell me about Toshiro, because the idea of, because when I read this card first, which is like, it's a 2/2 black samurai that's like, when a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard, you may play target instant card from your graveyard and then exile that spell. That
Mhm.
card seems so narrow and weird, and I could not figure out what you're supposed to do with it.
So the deck is essentially black instants. It's black spellslinger, but black is not a typical doesn't typically cover spellslinger. Spellslingers usually is it. So you actually have to go kind of weird and wild. But there's so many
Yeah.
cards that you generally don't get to see that often outside of a Toshiro deck. So, for example, I have a lot of different sorts of card draw. I have Succumb to Temptation. It's 3 mana instant. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. So if something dies, Toshiro lets me draw 2, pay 2 life. Dark Bargain is another one. Necrologia is another one. So I have a lot of different card draw. Obviously, I have a lot of removal spells. The best ones being stuff that lets me makes each opponent sacrifice a creature, because that will enable 3 Toshiro triggers if 3 creatures die. So for 2 mana, I can cast Liliana's Triumph. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Then I have 3 Toshiro triggers if 3 creatures have died. For that 2 mana, I can flash back Liliana's Triumph if I need to kill more stuff. I can draw cards. I can flashback Vamp Tutor. But
Jeez.
the best thing is Thrilling Encore. It's my favorite card in the entire deck. Thrilling Encore. It's a 5 mana instant from Battle Bond. Says put onto the battlefield under your control all creatures in all graveyards have put there from the battlefield this turn. So either somebody wipes the board, or you killed a bunch of stuff. You cast Thrilling Encore, you get all those creatures back on your side of the battlefield with this instant, and it's in the graveyard. It's an instant, so you can get it back with Toshiro if you really need to. So like that's the style of deck. It's
That's
very
wild. That
silly.
sounds so funny. Like,
Oh,
first off, Thrilling Encore is such a good and underrated card. Like, I love that card. I remember when I first saw it in Battle Bond, I was like, this is one of the coolest cards I've ever seen. Um, but the idea of
yeah.
making a full instance deck in black is such a neat deck building challenge. It's making me smile just thinking about it. It's like there's so many weird cards you're gonna have to use
But yeah, it's a
alongside
deck
like your
that
terrors and whatever.
yeah, it's such a fun deck. It uses a bunch of cards that you'll never see anywhere else, which is my favorite style of deck. Like I love decks where it's
100%.
like as many of the slots as possible, or at least stuff that you'd be like, yes, this is unique to X Y Z commander. Like I'm
Okay, we're
running
not gonna
like
be able to
three
talk
mana.
about
No,
tribal fully, but I
no,
have a question for you because I've been trying to build one. One of the biggest problems.
one of
For those of you who don't know, a tribal deck is effectively changeling tribal, and you use all of the weirdo lords that come out, and then, like for instance, like the cat lord that gives all cats +1/+1 and trample or whatever it is. All your cards are changelings. Suddenly, that guy gets to trample too. It basically turns every random lord into a sliver lord. Um, my question to you is, how do you find the balance between putting lords in and putting the fundamental changelings that actually make the deck work?
It was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of trial and error. I remember I wrote a primer on it a long time ago. And I think the number I came down to after playing just a lot of games, you just play a lot of games. I think it was like I needed 25 changelings
Mm,
for what my deck wanted to do. And I think it ended up being like 23 or 22 changelings at the end, because I added over time, over the years, I started adding tutors
mm.
to kind of help find the changeling I needed, which allowed me to have more flexible slots. Because, like, you know, if you have too many changelings in the deck, sure, you're always going to have a changeling, but the changelings by themselves, they don't really
No,
do
they
much.
just kind of sit
Yeah.
there mostly.
So the deck has inconsistency issues, which I actually like. I like
Yeah,
the fact that it's inconsistent, but reducing the changeling count by little and replacing them with tutors, flexible tutors, allows you to tutor up the changelings when you need them, but you can also use those tutors to find other things. So I think I found it to be like I have like 22 changelings at this point, and then I have like 5 or so tutor spells, and that has worked for me. That has
mm,
worked for me after many many games. But it also depends on what style of tribal obviously, and
yeah.
what you're trying to do with it and how many tutors you're running. I think how many tutors you're running is important.
You must have been so happy with Kaldheim and Modern Horizons 2 giving you more changelings.
Oh, those were such a blessing, and it was so funny. It was like there's these really cool changelings, but like, oh my goodness, it's a 2 mana tutor. All right, it's a 2 mana changeling. Ah, that's perfect. That means it's a 1 drop in my tribal deck. That's the money. That's where it's at. I was like, see ya, Ovar. Give me that Amiiboy changing, please. uh,
Oh,
yeah.
man, we didn't even get to talk about D&D.
Oh, I
Oh,
love D&D so much.
I love D&D so much.
But do you play 5th edition?
No, I mean, I'm a third and a half guy.
I started in third and a half.
Like third and a half was the set, the because all the stuff that I like, the Dragonlance setting and stuff, all of that was written in 3.5, and that's the system I'm most familiar with. But it's D&D. I play whatever D&D. Like I'm never going to say no to a D&D game unless it's like first edition. Then I'm going to be like, I guess if you
I wouldn't
really
even know
want
how to
to.
start. I know there's Thaco or something.
I mean, you use charts, man. You use charts. That's what you do.
What's your favorite class?
I like to play clerics and monks.
Clerics. Well, they're super flexible.
Dude,
Yeah.
I love maces. I love hitting, like I love having big blunt objects. I love being able to heal. I like all the divine powers. And then obviously I want to play like flying martial artist, just going and knocking people over.
Yeah.
Or like a barbarian. Just like give me like D12 of hit points and a big battle axe and I will run forward and smash.
So
It's
you
a
like
good
being a
time.
frontliner. That's what I'm starting to hear. Because a
I am
cleric usually
definitely
like mace and a shield and it has spells, but
Yes, I'm definitely a lead from the front guy. Like I'm definitely pushing forward and smashing face. I'm not much for the hide behind, look at my spell components and throw a fireball. But I wouldn't say no to fireball. Fireball's a good time.
yeah.
What about you?
I'm definitely that person who's throwing the fireballs. I'm usually a DM,
Well,
but
yeah,
when I do
same.
get to play, I like people. I like full spellcasters. I like having options, and I love supporting my team. Like I love doing it in arcane, but clerics are so good at it too. Like
Mm,
just being able to heal after a fight, and my favorite thing is like I have a friend, a long time friend, and he loves playing a barbarian. And like my favorite classes, like we'll tag team is like I'll be like, I will buff the barbarian to do massive damage. And he loves it and I
mm,
love it. And
mm-hmm.
that's like my favorite thing. I like being that support role that like allows people to shine. And I think, yeah, that's kind of like a philosophy, like, you take that in
Yes.
DMing, you take that in Commander. You want to make sure that people are having a fun time. So like I want to make sure that your characters get to shine, and if you're having super fun doing that, then I'm having super fun.
Amen. That is
Yeah.
my entire life philosophy right there. As long as everybody else is happy, then I am a happy camper.
I will take fireball though, because I like taking a big bunch of dice and just
There's
putting it on the
look,
table, and
man,
you
there's
hear the
nothing greater in the world than when you're like, all right, everybody pass down your dice. I'm gonna be casting a level 14 fireball. Let's go.
I always have this ready.
Hell
Your
yeah.
viewers can hear it, but it's like just my fireball dice thing.
Yes,
uh
yes. Love it.
oh,
Anyways, my friend, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been
absolutely,
really
my pleasure.
cool. So, if folks wanted to find you or your content, where could they go?
MTGGoldfish.com. You can find all the articles over there. I also run the YouTube channel, the sister channel of MTG Goldfish's MTG Goldfish Commander. That's the YouTube name. And we recently hit our 50K milestone that we're super hyped
Wow.
about. We're gonna do some announcements. We have some like really cool things merchandise wise that we haven't updated the store in like actually like 5 years. So this will be the first time in a long time. A lot of really really cool things there that I'm so excited for. And yeah, if you want Commander stuff, go to the YouTube channel. That's all the stuff is there.
Sweet. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at GaryPurdyGears. You can find Casual Magic anywhere podcasts are sold, or on Cool Stuff Inc. every Tuesday, and also on YouTube. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.